are now locked in and listening to The Issue.
This guy is a franchise quarterback, and no, I don't want to hear any pushback on that.
It feels like a top 10 roster to me. It feels like it can win a championship.
This is The Issue.
Yo, what's up? We are back. It is The Issue. Thursday, August 10th. We have NFL football tomorrow, the Steelers' first preseason game. It feels real now. It feels real. We're almost halfway through August. First kickoff for week 1 of the NFL is the first week of September. So we're about like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks out-ish now, maybe a little bit more. Doesn't matter. We are getting close to the NFL season, and our docket is filled for today. So we're going to have Tim's Rant to start things off on bad NFL teams, kind of giving you guys a look into the future on who you can expect to maybe tank a little bit, not be as good as expectations, and maybe have a shot at a Caleb Williams or a Drake May at quarterback in the upcoming draft. We're going to finish things out with hits and misses in the first segment. And in the second segment today, the AFC South divisional predictions. So we're going to have that there, along with our AFC South superlatives to close things out. And then in the third segment, we will have sports news, as we always do, and a little discussion on college football realignment, going over into the NCAA for a little bit. Obviously, college football starts here when everybody goes back to school, so right at the end of August. That I am very excited for. There are a lot of college football matchups, just the pageantry of the game that I can't wait for to start back up. But guys, thanks for stopping in today. We really appreciate you joining us no matter how you are. You can watch us on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, and as well as listen on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and iTunes.
Very excited. You mentioned college football. I'm seeing so many camp videos of I'm seeing Ole Miss pop up on my feed way more than I'm used to, which, hey, I'm fine with it. They look like they'll be pretty good. That's the weird thing about the SEC. They could be like the 6th best team and be like a very good football team. But anyway, there's a couple results and realities about the NFL now that it's become more quarterback dependent. Everybody knows that it's been more and more quarterback dependent year in and year out for the last, decade plus. You need a really good quarterback to win. You need a really, really good quarterback to win, a big game or two in the playoffs, and you need a great quarterback to win it all, right? That's one of the realities of the league. You're starting to see the separation between, if you have a really bad quarterback, you're not going to be a good football team, regardless of how good your roster is, right? San Francisco is different, but they also, people are like, well, San Francisco doesn't need a great quarterback. No, but they don't have bad quarterbacks either. Like, Brock Purdy's very, very competent. Jimmy Garoppolo's always been more competent than people think, right? So you can't have a bad quarterback and be a good football team. I have nothing against Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco or some of those other third-tier quarterbacks who have won the big game. They'll do more than I'll ever do. Great achievement. They played well that year, but those days are over. You're not going to win a Super Bowl or even get all that close with a Daniel Jones, a Marcus Mariota, a Ryan Tannehill level quarterback. It's just not going to happen anymore. And 2, because of this, the top and the bottom separate pretty drastically, but the middle also gets a little bit more murky. You'll see what I mean, right? It's pretty easy to see the teams that will struggle, and you don't have to look too far to see, which the teams are going to be successful, and you also don't have to look far as to why. It's the quarterback play. Maybe coaching here and there, like, for example, Tampa Bay, and we'll talk about them, right? I don't hate their roster, and Baker's not my favorite quarterback. I don't think he's all that good, but he's certainly capable if the roster's good, and the roster's good, but I don't like the coach. But that's a different story, right? And as we look to do these divisional predictions, right, I do think that there are some divisions in some circumstances that need more nuance than this, but at the end of the day, I do think it's very easy to see who's going to be number 1 and who's going to be number 4 in the division, right? Who has the best quarterback? Who's got the worst quarterback? I'd be very hard-pressed to find a division that doesn't have the best quarterback winning and the worst quarterback losing the division. Or you go back to, I think last year, like 7 of 8 divisions were ranked almost perfectly. Right, so now I'm thinking, let's see. It's going to be a really good quarterback draft next year. Which teams are going to be bad, right? There's going to be 3, 4, maybe 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round next year. Who the hell's going to take them? Right, so let's look right now at who the public and Vegas thinks that will finish, around last place. Like Cleveland, they're tied to Deshaun Watson for the next, 4 years? A lot of guaranteed money. They're probably not going to draft one high unless they are really, really bad and can move off Deshaun's contract, which I doubt they can, so that probably won't happen. Probably won't happen. Texans or Colts, well, they have their guy. Whether you like C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson, whether you're a believer or not, they're not going to turn around and draft another guy, especially the Colts with the potential of an Anthony Richardson. It's not going to happen. Patriots, but you would have to bank on Bill Belichick doing something kind of rash and out of his comfort zone, which is move off a young quarterback, especially while they're cheap, and then go get another young quarterback, restart the clock in an ever-improving division. Doesn't seem like a Bill Belichick move. I mean, is it possible? I'm absolutely putting that on the table. It doesn't seem like he's got a good relationship with Mac. It's possible, but it seems like he's a little bit too conservative for a splash rookie. Doesn't seem like it's his thing. What about Vegas? Could absolutely see Vegas doing that. Again, have decent money tied up into Jimmy G, but on the bright side, if you can move off that contract, you have a lot of stars around him, so you can keep paying those stars and then get a young quarterback in there. I could see that. Tampa, we think they're in the sweepstakes, but they have like a very, very legit roster. And again, I don't like Baker. I don't view Baker as a franchise quarterback, but do I think Baker is a top 25 quarterback? Absolutely. I think Baker is a very capable guy. Could he come in and have an 83 passer rating, 18 touchdowns, and 9 picks and be good enough? For sure. For sure. I mean, Washington, they can say Sam Howell and Ron Rivera. I think if they finish last, they'll probably draft someone. Arizona, I've talked about this a bunch, especially on the newsletter. It's like if it's week 10 and they're 1-9 and Kyler's thinking about coming back, you sit him, you tank, you move Kyler for a first and a B-plus starter, and you go draft the guy. And then you get to like Chicago or Green Bay. Don't kid yourself. By Thanksgiving, I think those franchises are in the same spot. By Thanksgiving, they're making a decision. If Justin Fields is 3-6 through 9 games this coming year and he's 8-26 in his career, they're moving off. Sorry, folks, you got to win games. You can be talented. You got to win games. So now you're looking at who is going to draft these young guys. We have 4 guys for sure, probably, maybe a 5th that are going to go in the first round. So we're looking Vegas probably, Washington almost for sure in my eyes, Arizona and Chicago maybe, but I would say that's closer to like a 50-50 proposition, and then a long shot odds New England and Green Bay, who are organizations that don't make splash moves like that often. So we're like at 3, maybe 4 teams. And we have 4, probably 5 guys that are going to go. So my point is, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a team that's worse than we think, or a team that's better than we think, that's going to shake up these sweepstakes a little bit. Like I said, a lot of people view Tampa in that sweepstakes area. Schedule's not too bad. Like it wouldn't surprise you if they win 7 games and they're drafting somewhere around 9, 10, 11, don't have an opportunity for that top quarterback. They trade back, get pieces, live to fight another day, right? Like there's so many scenarios. Someone's going to be worse than you think. Someone's going to be better than you think. It's not as clear-cut as you might have it predetermined going into this upcoming draft as to who's going to be drafting some of these young quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's not like the oil-vinegar separation and watching, where it's very clear-cut. And the NFL never is. There's so many different pieces that play into it. The schedule difficulty is one of them. And like you talked about with Tampa, the schedule is not all that tough, right? So we did that prediction last week. We had them at second in the division, I think 9-8, 8-9.
No, I think we had New Orleans, then Atlanta, and then we had Tampa in third. I think at what? Oh, that's 7 wins, maybe.
Yes, 7-10. 7-10 is what we had them at.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. And now, granted, if they wanted to go draft like a Michael Penix, or if they like Bo Nix, or maybe Quinn Ewers has a good year, right? Those are some of the guys that are thrown around. Cause it's like Drake May, Caleb Williams, and that second tier is like Penix, Ewers, and Bo Nix if they end up having good seasons.
Yeah, and I think the one big thing that you have to look at is, do they see this guy, and can you see this guy and project their current starter as their franchise guy and who they want to keep around in the building? I don't think that's a Baker Mayfield.
No,
and then you look over at Vegas, I don't think that's a Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like, they're great Jimmy G is a good quarterback. He's a good bridge quarterback, good backup. He'll do what you need him to do. But that's not the kind of guy that you want to hang your hat on. So they're going to be looking to draft that franchise guy probably in the next year or two. So I would say, Vegas would be in the sweepstakes. But that's just another little hint that you have to...
I'll tell you what, here's an interesting proposition, though, when you're looking at NFC versus AFC. If you have a bad NFC team, look for them to just say, screw it, we'll tank.
Yeah.
Because you could draft a guy, and within a year, he could be the second or third best quarterback in the NFC. We got Jalen Hurts, Kirk, Dak. Who else? There's not a ton of top-end talent at the quarterback position. Stafford, if he's healthy, but he's aging, he'll probably be out of the league in 3 years, right? Kyler, but he's hurt. We have no idea if he's going to stay in Arizona. We don't know the situation there. He's also hurt.
We were just looking at a list the other day, the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and the first NFC quarterback is Jalen Hurts on that list, and he's at number 6.
Right, and a lot of people have Dak at 8 or 9, which is insane to me. He's more like
that's
12 or
crazy.
13. So
Yes.
you have one, maybe two guys from the NFC in your top 10 top 10 league quarterbacks, right? So if you're in the AFC and you're a bad team, there's an argument, hey, let's not tank and restart the clock because we can't go ahead and punt the next 2 years with a young quarterback in this fantastic conference.
Yeah.
In the NFC, you can. You can be like, we can let him develop a little bit. Like, he'll be ready in 3 years. And in that, while he's developing, he'll still be a top 5 talent in the NFC.
Yeah.
You can make an argument for that. AFC, you can't. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch unfold. It's going to be a good one, too. I can't wait.
I'm excited.
Let's go. We're going to get into some hits and misses now. Go over where we were right and wrong in the previous week.
All right, hit number one. I've said it for a while, and people want to act like sports is all like neat and tidy, and it makes sense, and everybody likes each other. I've said that's not the case. If you've actually played a sport, even at the high school or collegiate level, you know that there's a lot of emotion. These are grown alpha men, right? They're competing. They're putting food on the table day in and day out. Emotions fly, right? Like Trayvon Diggs and Dak yelling back and forth. To me, it's not a big deal at all. It's football. It's physical. That's how it works. I mean, we play pool and we get competitive, right? Like, imagine competing. Imagine if we played pool and it was like, imagine playing a physical sport every single day against the same people, right? Like that's how football is. That's how sports are. It's raw emotion. That's how it is. That's how guys are in general. I have no problem with it. Yell back and forth, compete. That's what football is all about.
Well, let's also not forget, these are hyper-competitive individuals who have not just played sports, but they have played since they were, probably 6 years old playing flag football, 8 years old you get to play contact for the first time. So, like, it's ingrained in you. You're bred to compete. These guys,
they're born like that, right?
They are, I think a lot of times people lose perspective on just, like, how above and beyond, like, all these athletes are in the NFL. And yes, sometimes it boils over. Emotions are going to run high, especially when you have guys that are out there competing for a job, and then you're mixing that in with, like, some veterans, like the Travis Kelce thing.
Yeah.
Right? He catches that, feels like he gets hit a little bit late, turns around, throws a punch. Like, do you love it? No. Does it happen? Yes.
Yeah. Right. It's not like I'm saying, I want every practice, I want there to be a fight. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But it's like, if it happens a couple times in a training camp, whatever. It's feisty.
Like
talk trash.
Like you said, in the slightest thing, too. Like, they just have the competitive outlet. When we're playing pool or when we golfed the other day.
Yeah, it gets competitive. That's how it goes. Yeah. All right, missed number one here. I never really thought of Aaron Rodgers as a guy who is, gets along swimmingly with the young guys. Doesn't seem like he's very team first. Doesn't embrace change very well.
Aaron seems to be changing.
But so far in New York, just like you said, he is changing. He has proved me wrong. Good for Aaron. He's taking a pay cut.
Yeah.
He's getting along great with the young guys. Seems like he's connecting really well with Garrett Wilson. So good for him. It's been a lot more stark of a pivot than I expected from Aaron.
Yeah.
Good for him. I think the Jets and him are going to be better for it. We could not have been more wrong on that one.
Yeah, I definitely think the Jets are going to benefit from it. Also, just like a question here, is he doing this to get back at Green Bay? Because this is a lot of firsts for Aaron Rodgers. This late in the career, he spends so much time in Green Bay, and then he leaves, and the first year he leaves, he just completely flips script from everything he's ever been. Is that to throw maybe just a little bit more of a jab that might sting a little bit longer in Green Bay?
Maybe. I think it's more the fact that, like, anytime you move on, like, get a new job, or whether it's a relationship, job, whatever the case may be, or even, like, house, where you're moving geographically, it's like, I feel like you move and you look to get better at something or change something, or you're like, there's a little bit of, like, a fresh start mentality where it's like, hey, this is something I want to do better now that I have, like, the fresh start to do so.
Right.
I just graduated college not long ago. It's like now I'm like, worried more about diet and, like, little things that you just didn't have time for, just didn't care about in college, like, didn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I think it's more just like new place,
just
new opportunity,
fresh start kind of thing.
Picked a couple things where he's like, this may have been, a little bit of self-reflection. This may have been a problem at my last place. I'm going to make it right at my new place.
He had no problem with that self-reflection, huh?
Good for him. Well, it took him darkness retreat to do it, but hey,
exactly.
whatever it takes. Hit number 2 here. We said you should move off Ohtani. You're not going to get anything from him. If he leaves at the end of the year, you're not winning with him.
Yeah,
you haven't won
losing.
without him.
Still losing.
You haven't won without him historically, and just like you said, they're winless since the deadline, or maybe they're like 1-8, something like that. They've been atrocious since the deadline. That's the important part.
Yeah.
They should have dealt him. They should have restarted. You could go get you can't get draft picks. You can go get, like, international pool money. You can go get a ton of prospects. You can go get a ton of even high-end MLB starters.
Yep.
Now you're out of assets and you're not good. You got to hope you can keep them at the end of the year or even make a run this year. But nonetheless, it doesn't look good for the Angels at all.
I agree. I mean, he is such a generational talent, and he's going to be so much better served in a new place too, I think. Yeah. A team that actually wins. I'd love to see Shohei win a title. I mean, I think,
he deserves to play in big moments.
Exactly. He needs to be in the playoffs. He needs to be competing deep into the season every single year. And Los Angeles, the Angels are not the place to do that.
What? Interesting. So I was just about to say, like, at the end of the day, I don't care where players play. I want to see the best players in the best moments.
Yeah.
I want to see high-end players. I don't care if I have to watch the Dodgers and the Braves year in and year out. If they're constantly getting new players, getting new stars, and I'm watching the best players on the biggest stage compete against each other, I don't really care.
Like, imagine if Tom Brady just never got to the Super Bowl. Like, he just never got to watch him in those huge moments in the games.
Right, and it's also easier for us to say this as Pirate fans because we just know it's never going to be us. We can just concede that it's never going to be us.
Yeah, we can just start and we're like, he's gone.
So we're just years. So we just know that we're never going to be one of those teams. So yes, I'm a Pirate fan. I'm more of a baseball fan than I am a Pirate fan, though.
Overall product, yes.
Yeah, miss number 2 here. We don't talk a ton of hoops. We do talk a lot of playoff basketball, especially when it gets down to it because, again, big players, big stages. It's interesting. Gets good ratings, all that. So I did say this past postseason with Anthony Davis, right? He would have a really good game and then a really inconsistent game. And I'm saying I think he's good. I'd love to have him on my team. I think he's really good too, but he's a little too injury prone, a little bit too inconsistent offensively. And he's no longer getting any better. He's not an ascending player anymore. He's on the backside of his career. But they just gave him 3 years for like $186 million. It's the most per year extension in NBA history.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it. I disagree with the thing. I think he's really talented when he plays, but he's too inconsistent offensively, injury prone. I'm not a huge fan of the deal.
Do you think it shakes anything up?
I think it just basically keeps the Lakers about where they are, about the second, third, fourth best team in the West.
Like they're
somewhere around the fifth best team in the league.
They're going to compete.
They're going to be top 10 in the league, but I don't view them as a championship team.
Okay. Fair enough.
They can compete for one. I don't think they will win one. Hit number 3 here. The Buccos started off hot, and everyone was saying, oh, who's sleeping now? This is their year. They're going to the playoffs. And I said, no, they're a very young team. Yeah. Wake up. Young teams fall off. That's kind of how it goes. They start fast. Teams get a bill on them. They start to regress back to the mean a little bit. They're like 10 games under 500, 9 games back of first. Yep. That's about what I said they'd be, 10 games under 500. So this is exactly what we expected. This is exactly what we said. Even when they're winning a lot of games, I said pump the brakes, and we're now seeing the reality of that.
Yeah, I've been on this one since before the first pitch was even thrown for the season, and people were getting all hype. I'd love to see them be competitive, and I'd love to see them do well. But I just know deep down that it's just not going to happen, at least not in the near future. Maybe. I mean, like, we have some young guys, and I think once O'Neal Cruz is back and things can build into more seasons and gather some more experience, I think it could end up being okay, maybe a wild card spot. But that's the thing. Like, a wild card spot is such a big win for the Pirates.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm never going to count them in for anything. We've always said temper expectations, and that's what we're seeing.
Kind of sad that's the standard for the Buccos.
It sucks. In a city that has such great sports, like, we're expected to go to the Super Bowl. We're expected to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs and to the Stanley Cup. But the Pirates are just like, if you can make a wild card, dude.
Or even if you're competitive in September.
Yeah.
If you're competitive for the last month,
that's a win.
Yeah. We usually have 3 hits and 3 misses, but now we've had a very good week. Hit number 4.
Wow, this feels good.
Everyone's sitting there belly aching about Kyle Dubas moving all the veterans that have been here and put in their time, and they don't deserve to get moved and cut and traded or whatever the case may be. They're eating their words now. I kept receipts. He went out, made a fantastic blockbuster trade to get Erik Karlsson from San Jose. That is a great get for the Pens. He's a top-notch defenseman, which has been our weakness for the last decade. It seems like it's Letang, and then there's everybody else. And to sort of finally get another top flight defenseman to go along, and he's also not super young. He can play with the older guys. He's got that veteran experience. Yeah. He's on the timeline of a Sid, a Gino, a Letang. So I think it's a perfect get for the Pens. I love the move. Kyle Dubas, great job.
Yeah, he has really shaken things up, and if you're against it, don't be afraid of change, I guess, would be the message here. I mean, like, you have guys, like, the Penguins weren't winning as is. A change needed to be made. A GM was fired for a reason. So, yeah, he's going to go out. He's going to get new pieces. He's going to spend money in different places. And this
Second segment, the issue. what is it, the 10th already of August?
Yep.
We have football, the NFL, the rest of the NFL. Now we have the Thursday night game to open up, but the rest of the NFL debuts in exactly, what would that be, 30 days? I don't know how many days are in the month, but whatever. It's in a month. September 10th.
September 10th.
The first Sunday. Full Sunday slate of NFL games.
I can't
Good to
wait.
have you in. If you missed it, we did a little rant on kind of bad NFL teams, who we expect to maybe be drafting quarterbacks, in next year's draft, looking ahead to how some teams are going to perform. Then we, of course, had hits and misses. We actually had 4 hits, 2 misses this week because we're just built like that.
It felt good. I like that.
We're just built like that. So if you're just tuning in, go back and watch those segments. And if you're coming here just for the predictions, we appreciate it. You get the AFC South today, and of course we'll have the AFC South superlatives to finish. We'll have some college football in the third segment to wrap it up. It's a good episode today.
Absolutely. It's packed. A lot of football. I mean, we even got that college football coming up at the end of the episode, which I'm pumped about.
Very excited.
I think we were talking about it last week, how excited we were for that to start up.
I got some good opinions on it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be even better as we see more of these teams go to different conferences. I think it's going to be really cool.
I agree.
But without further ado, we got divisional predictions to get to you. I think this is 5 or 6. No, this is 6. 6 of 8.
Yeah.
We're getting down to the last 2 in these next 2 weeks, so it's starting to come to an end, which is kind of sad, but also a good thing, which means we're getting closer to NFL. But this week, AFC South predictions, AFC South superlatives. Let's start with the predictions.
So if you are new here, we always start at 4 and go to 1. So we'll start in the basement. I think the Houston Texans are once again in the basement of this division. I do like the direction of the football team. I think DeMeco Ryans is a good football coach. Again, defensive. I'd prefer my young offensive coach, or my young coach, to be offensive. I think with like a Shane Steichen and Sean McVay's, Shanahan's, right? Like, you're seeing that's the direction of the league. Kellen Moore is fantastic on the offensive side, although he's a coordinator for right now. So I don't love that, but I do think he's going to be better for the culture. He's going to help rebuild that organization. Yeah. I do like C.J. Stroud. I don't think he's a superstar, but I think he'll be solid from day one. I don't think his ceiling's particularly high, but I don't think his floor is particularly low. I do worry about the lack of weapons he has to throw to. Yeah. And the running back room is okay, not special. Offensive line shaky. And defense, not a ton of talent. Hopefully they can be better under DeMeco Ryans. But as of right now, there's not a ton of bona fide, producers on the roster, so I have to pause for right now. I think 4-13. I would look for next year for them to double their win total. Maybe next year they're 7-10, 8-9, somewhere around there. But I think for right now, 4-13 feels about right.
Look, I don't trust C.J. Stroud. I'm not the biggest fan. I've heard too many comps to Justin Fields, coming out of the same organization in college.
I don't think he's athletic as Fields. I think he's better from the pocket, though.
I'm not saying he can't ever be anything, but I need to see it first. This is not the guy that I'm willing to blindly trust going into this season, and especially with, we know how Houston has been the last couple of years. I think it takes more than one season to turn that completely around.
I would agree.
So for now, we're going to keep them at 4 wins.
All right, let's go to the Indianapolis Colts in third place. We said 5-12. You could talk me into 6-11. It all really hinges upon how good is Anthony Richardson. So far in camp, we've seen a lot of very encouraging tape. He's certainly physical. He's going to be able to run the football very effectively. He's got a big arm, so he's going to make splash plays down the field. My worry is, can he make the layups? Can he hit the screen passes, swing passes, slants, outs, right? The things that are generally pretty routine for the elite quarterbacks, the Mahomes, the Burrows,
the mundane things that win you games.
The Herberts, right. Like Herbert has a big arm, can move, right? But he makes the easy throws that he should consistently. So it depends, can Anthony Richardson do that? We'll see. I think Shane Steichen's a fantastic young coach. If Jonathan Taylor comes back, they'll at least be serviceable in the run game, although I think it can improve because the offensive line's not very good. But I do like the Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman duo. I don't think either of them are a 1, but I think they're both very good 2s in the league. Defense is okay, not particularly strong on the back end, but Shaq Leonard in the middle is going to be a very good piece. So at 5-12, you could talk me to 6-11. It all depends on how good is Anthony Richardson. Can he produce now? I think with his legs he'll be able to. Can he throw from the pocket consistently? We'll see.
Yeah, and I think they have a good amount of young talent where in the next couple of seasons they're not going to be as low. They're just in a little bit of a they're in a rebuild.
It's a rebuild. That's fine.
So it's going to take them a little bit of time, but with these young pieces, I think they could be good.
I really like Shane Steichen for Anthony Richardson. What he was able to do with Herbert and then Hurts. Like, you have a guy with just as much raw talent as both of those guys. I would argue more.
Now you just have to refine it.
Exactly. Tennessee Titans in third place. 8-9.
Second place?
Or I'm sorry, second place. 8-9, 9-8, maybe. We were going game by game here. We were anywhere between 7-10 and 9-8. The problem is I just can't see a good culture and a very good coach like Mike Vrabel going 7-10. I think 8-9 feels about right for me. I don't love the quarterback play. I do like the addition of D-Hop, and I like Treylon Burks at wide receiver as a good 2. Derrick Henry's good, but now you start asking yourself, like, you're trying to predict the year he falls off, right? It's always going to be like a hot take to be like, I think Derrick Henry's going to suck this year, but like eventually it's going to happen, and the fall off for like a big, strong athlete can be pretty quick. And so I'm not predicting it this year, but it's coming soon. Would it shock me if it was this year? No. I think the offensive line's not very good. And I think the defense plays good as a unit, but there are holes. The back end's a little bit weak. And in big spots, they tend to get exposed by better quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And so down the stretch, I think they will get exposed. 8-9, at best 9-8. I think they're clawing for the last wild card spot. I don't think they'll get it. Tennessee at 2.
And like you said, with a Mike Vrabel, they're not going to be horrible. He's going to save them and salvage them a win or two. But this is just the same tale. You have to see if that's going to work. Like, I have nothing to base this off of. Nothing. Except how I feel about Will Levis.
I don't know if he'll even play.
And,
we'll see.
I just don't know.
They might even cut Malik Willis. Their quarterback room's a mess.
Look, I don't like either of the two.
I would agree.
I don't like either of the two.
The worry, though, the concern is that in 2 years, if C.J. Stroud is at least decent and Anthony Richardson is the star we think he can be, they'll have the 4th best quarterback in the division easily. Even if it is Will Levis. Even if it is a physical specimen, he'll still be the 4th best quarterback, most likely.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's the concern there. Yep. At number 1, not a lot of surprise here, the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of people have them as potentially the number 1 seed in the AFC because the schedule isn't super daunting in terms of in division. They should be able to sweep the division. We have them sweeping the division, going 12-5. They do have a couple tough games outside of the division, but I think they'll be fine. Like there's a couple games where they have to go like to New Orleans on short rest, prime time. Like that's just not a game I'm not necessarily certain that they're ready to win yet.
Yeah, and to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, to Pittsburgh's a tough one, right? Like they get the Chiefs at home. That's still going to be tough.
Yeah.
So either way, like there's some games they're not quite built to win yet, but I do think they're going to be dynamic offensively. I love Trevor Lawrence. Calvin Ridley's really good. Travis Etienne's fantastic. Doug Peterson's a great coach, especially with young quarterbacks. So Jacksonville is easily the most talented team in the division. They're one of the more talented teams in the AFC. I think it's, again, another building year. I would look for next year to be that year where they really pop in terms of Super Bowl contending. But they'll go win a playoff game or two, and they'll probably be in the AFC Championship game this year.
I think so. They are ascending for sure, and somehow I feel like flying a little bit under the radar. I feel like a lot of the times when you hear in sports media, you hear Bills, you hear Chiefs, and Chargers. You don't the Bengals. Yeah. You don't really hear much when it comes to the Jags, and it didn't really occur to me until I watched that quarterback documentary on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, it's
amazing. But they hung with the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Like that was a battle.
Like, watching that from the sideline and hearing everything that was going on, like, that was an all-out brawl between Mahomes and Lawrence.
That was a fantastic game.
I think they're a lot better than people think.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I think they will be in the AFC. I think they'll be at the Arrowhead Invitational, the AFC Championship game, and they'll give them a run for their money. That's what Nick Wright calls it, the Arrowhead Invitational.
I like it.
Which damn near has been.
Yeah. Run it back through.
Yeah, so starting at, well, actually we'll go from the top to bottom here. Jacksonville at 1, Tennessee at 8-9 in the number 2nd slot there. Indianapolis in 3rd with a 5-12 record, and Houston in the basement 4-13.
I like it. Good stuff. That's the AFC South.
Good, I love it.
It should be pretty good. Now it's time to transition into talking about the best players of the division. So we're talking MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Breakout Player, and the Coach of the Division for the AFC South.
All right, MVP. Let's go. Trevor Lawrence, the prince who was promised, the prodigy himself. I mean, the flowing blonde hair, the beautiful throws. No, in all seriousness,
the football Jesus, some may say.
The football Jesus. Now, in all seriousness, no, easily the most talented player in the division. You know, you can argue for a couple of different receivers and linemen and running backs, but at the end of the day, like, he is the most talented player at the most important position in this division. I think he's got a real market, I guess, as an MVP candidate on the betting markets. Right, he's a pretty stark underdog.
Yeah.
I think he's like plus 1,000 or something like that. I don't know. Some big long odds. But I think he has that type of talent. You saw down the stretch, I think it was after like week 8 or 9, the last like 10 games of the year, he was the best statistical quarterback in football. Like, he was that guy. He was like second in pass rating, like first in touchdowns, like second in yards per game. Like, he was that guy down the stretch. That's who Trevor Lawrence is. That's who I think he will be this year, MVP, T-Lock.
It makes sense, and we've seen Jacksonville without him. I think a lot has to be said for the way he was able to turn things around there. Of course, like, the coaching change was huge as well, and that played a big part. But I mean, having the right guy at quarterback to be a leader and lead your team through something like that, and be able to make a franchise that was not even slightly competitive and take them to the playoffs and really compete with Mahomes for 4 quarters, that's impressive.
Right. It gives you this, like, having that guy at the helm gives the rest of the building, like, you can kind of take a deep breath. You're like, okay, we got that
like, we're
guy.
Okay.
We got
we're
that
okay.
guy. No matter what happens, we have the guy in the room that we can lean on, that we can trust. We know he's going to be that guy, and it also gives you a little bit of clarity in your locker room and in your building. It's like, hey, this is the guy. You either rise to his standard, you either help him win, you either help this team, support him, or you leave. That's it.
Yeah.
Like that's you. Those are your only options, because
Exactly.
that's our guy.
Exactly.
All right, Offensive Player of the Year. Who I think is going to be his number one weapon this year, Calvin Ridley, coming off that suspension for gambling. He has looked crisp. I mean, his route running is fantastic. The speed in and out of cuts. He might be the best route runner in football. Yeah. It's a very short list. Him, Amari Cooper, Justin Jefferson's up there now, but like, he is dynamic route running, and then after the catch, fantastic. Calvin Ridley is going to be a beast this year. I mean, it would not surprise me in the slightest if he comes out 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, like that type of year where I'm talking top 2 or 3 receivers in football.
Yeah, I would bet on Calvin Ridley. I'll put my money on Calvin Ridley for sure.
Would you bet on Calvin Ridley?
I would bet on Calvin Ridley, yeah.
Would Calvin Ridley bet on Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, I think he probably would. He might. But either way, I think, you need your receiver to go with your elite quarterback, right? Yeah. We've seen it time and time again. Look at Jamar Chase, look at Joe Burrow. These are things that propel you in this league.
Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen.
Exactly.
Tyreek Hill when Mahomes was a little bit younger.
Yeah, every quarterback kind of has their guy. I mean, even Ben had AB for a while, too, in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So, like, you usually have, like, that fantastic receiver to complement the elite quarterback, and I think that's a necessity in today's game, especially, like we've talked about, offensive coaching has grown to such an importance because offensive production has become so high. Yeah. Like, that's what you need to win in this league. So, Offensive Player of the Year makes a lot of sense.
I think it also, we talked about this with Jackson Smith and Jigba, the rookie going into Seattle, right? How he, not only is he very good and he will be productive, his game layers well with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right? Lockett's more down the field, same with Metcalf. Yeah. A little more possession, gadget guy. You needed like a technician in the middle of the field in terms of route running, slot production. Same thing in Jacksonville in terms of Zay Jones, a little bit more physical, going to make the jump ball plays more often. Christian Kirk is more of a deep threat. And there's Calvin Ridley, who can go deep, but is also more of that precision, surgical guy, going to get open more times than not.
You need that.
It layers well. Defensive Player of the Year. There's not a ton of defensive talent in this division. You can look at a guy like Josh Allen in Jacksonville. A couple edge rushers in Tennessee. I think they work well together, but they're not necessarily standout players. I think Shaquille Leonard, the middle linebacker for Indianapolis, is the best singular player defensively in the division. Tackle machine, turnover machine, long arms, can defend the pass, active enough sideline to sideline to make a ton of tackles. Kind of reminds me of a young Bobby Wagner, but longer and a little bit more active in terms of pass coverage. So Shaquille Leonard's the real deal up the middle. Again, not a super impactful position, but he does anchor that defense, and if he's on, the defense has the potential to be top 12 to 15. If not, they're a not very good defense.
Yeah, so. And that, like you were saying, when your linebacking core can help you out in pass protection like that, that is huge for your secondary.
Yeah, right, pass defense, yeah.
Yeah, and, being able to not just have to rely on your safeties and DBs to do all the work. When you can kind of push some of that to the linebackers.
It's almost like a safety, but like lower in the middle of the field. You know? Like
100%.
Luke Kuechly was a lot better in pass coverage than people think.
Right, but he can also step up, fill a gap, and just absolutely crush a running back too.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it's a good mix of both.
Yeah.
All right, Breakout Player of the Year. Now this is a rookie, and I think you need to temper in terms of breakout, but Anthony Richardson, right? I don't think he's going to break out in terms of being a top 10, even top 15 quarterback. But I think what you are going to see talent-wise and the wow factor-wise with Anthony Richardson is going to be the reason he quote-unquote breaks out. A lot like Josh Allen's rookie year. Not very efficient, a little bit raw, unrefined, but there's going to be 4 or 5 plays a game where it's like, that doesn't look like anything else I've seen on the planet, right? Like where he's going to throw a ball 65 yards or he's going to take off and beat DBs down the field, right? Just like unbelievable speed, or put his shoulder through a safety, right? Mm-hmm. So he's going to do things on the field that you just can't explain. I think in that sense, he's going to break out in terms of, oh, we don't know 100%, but we know for sure that he's got the talent. Like, that is our guy moving forward. We'll die on that hill if he ends up not being able to be refined, but that's enough talent to last a lifetime. Like, he's going to be that guy. So I think that's why he'll be the breakout player of the year.
I mean, it's no shock that he is, insanely athletic. Right? We've known that for a long time. He has all the, like you said, raw talent. He has everything there. Now, if you can refine it, put it together, I think he can be a really, really good quarterback. He might have been the sleeper pick of the draft. I think that'll be really
It's either going to look like the best pick of all time, or it's going to be like the worst pick of all time.
Like the stupidest thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I think it can end up being pretty good for the Colts. I think best case scenario, it's like a Kenny Pickett in his first year, right? Where you're like, we still need to see a little bit more.
At the start.
But like he maybe has a really good end of the season, maybe like the last 5-6 games tears. So
certainly possible. Let's go with Coach of the Year. I think going along with Anthony Richardson, his brilliant young head coach, Shane Steichen. Now, I know we only have them at about 5 wins. You could argue me into 6. But the turnaround in terms of the offensive scheme is, I think, going to be stark, right? I think you're going to see a huge difference with Anthony Richardson in terms of his delivery, his timing, his mechanics. I think Jonathan Taylor, if he ends up coming back to play, is going to be a big part of the offense. He's going to be happy. He's going to be productive. Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce are going to be a good 1-2 punch. Like, I think Steichen's going to be able to kind of tie. I feel like there's kind of like a bunch of ragtag parts here, and he's going to be able to kind of tie it all together, bring them all as a cohesive unit, and they're going to be a lot better on offense than people think. And the culture and the direction of the franchise, you're going to, by Thanksgiving, you're going to be like, oh, I'm not sure if they're great, but they're going in the right direction. Yeah. I think that's why he'll be Coach of the Year, Shane Steichen.
That's a big piece to have, too.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to compete. And in your division, you got Doug Peterson, Mike Vrabel.
Good, two good coaches, yeah. Like and D'Amico Ryans, again, young, looks like he could be a good coach as well.
We need to see something. Yeah. But, it's important to have a good coach in the NFL, let alone in this division. It's a division that hasn't been all that exciting in years past, but I think is starting to grow and grow more. So
depends how these young quarterbacks pan out, and C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson.
Exactly. I mean, for the betterment of football, I hope they're good.
I would agree.
Hope they're good.
Let's run back through those. MVP, Trevor Lawrence. Offensive Player of the Year, Calvin Ridley. Shaquille Leonard, Defensive Player of the Year. Breakout Player, Anthony Richardson. And Coach of the Year, his head coach, Shane Steichen.
Yeah, guys, stick around. On the other side of the break, we are going to have news and a discussion on the college football and all the realignment going on there. So you're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you hang around till the third segment. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, subscribe. Go check out all the other videos.
Here we go. Third segment on Thursday, August 10th. We got a news segment to get to you. We got a college football discussion to have. It should be a good one. We appreciate you sticking around this long. Go check out theissuesports.com. Look at all the merchandise. We got everything in the shop. And then we also have the newsletter right there on the homepage that you need to sign up for. The newsletter is revamped.
Looking good.
Fantastic. So make sure you go put the email in. Click sign up. It'll send a confirmation email over to the account. Make sure you just, confirm, subscribe, and then you will be getting our newsletter every single Wednesday. And it's very helpful, especially for the NFL season, to keep up with things, especially once sports betting rolls back around and we really get into, some different bets that we like. We usually give like 3 to 5-ish a week. It really depends on, the lines of the games that are available to bet on. But yeah, make sure you're staying in the loop. Theissuesports.com. You can find everything you need over there.
Yes, sir. Let's get into some news. We got some stories, couple baseball stories.
Yeah.
Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's hit it.
Bring a little of the diamond into the pre-NFL season.
Absolutely. Story number 1 here. We will start with NFL, then we will get to some baseball. The Saints signed running back Kareem Hunt. So obviously Alvin Kamara suspended 3 games for that the fight outside of the nightclub in Vegas. What was that, like a year and a half ago? Yeah. And then they also signed Jamal Williams to back up Alvin Kamara. So now the first 3 games you'll have Kareem Hunt and Jamal Williams. Now After that, week 4 on, you'll have Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams. Is that the best backfield in football?
I think it can be.
I would argue yes. I think Kamara out of the backfield, even running the football, is wildly effective. Then you have Jamal Williams, who has proved that at the goal line, short yardage situations inside the 10, red zone, fantastic. And then Kareem Hunt, who is kind of a little bit of everything, can run between the tackles, can still catch passes out of the backfield, really good in pass protection, a veteran guy that's been around the league a little bit. So I think it might be the most well-rounded backfield in football.
I agree with that. It definitely has the most depth now that Cleveland doesn't have that running back tandem. I was thinking that could be the only one that would,
Yeah, but now that Hunt's now in New Orleans, I would say just Chubb I don't think is better than the 3 of those combined.
No, absolutely not. There's not a backfield in the NFL that's like that. So I think it's definitely going to help out the Saints. Derek Carr's not going to have to be leaned on as much, which is the recipe to win with a Derek Carr. You don't want him throwing 60 times a game.
No, if Derek Carr can throw 26 times a game, a lot of 2nd and 4s, 3rd and 2s, right? Like, put him in a position to succeed.
Plus, Derek Carr is a very good quarterback off of play action.
Yeah,
so if you can run the football really well and take a lot of pressure off, so you're dispersing, you're kind of changing up, keeping the defense on their toes, so to speak, and then you can throw off of that is just huge.
Yeah, defensive coach, too, that they, generally speaking, have that run-first mentality. Don't screw it up for my defense, basically.
Yeah.
So, story number 2 here, Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez.
This is awesome.
Squaring off at second base. So, Jose Ramirez hits a double, kind of stretches a single into a double, to be honest with you. Slides in head first. Gets there. Tim Anderson holds the tag, but he ends up sliding kind of between his legs. I don't know. Either way, wasn't a fan of... Neither of them were a fan of the interactions. They got up. Jose starts pointing at him, poking at him a little bit, and then Tim Anderson just says all of a sudden, all right, screw it, let's drop the glove, takes his glove, throws it down, and is squaring up as if this is like a hockey fight.
Yeah.
Jose then squares up as well. They start throwing punches back and forth. Jose connects, kinda, though. It didn't even look like that firm of a right.
No.
But he hit Anderson right on the button, right on the chin. Anderson gets knocked down. You hear the broadcaster where he's like,
Anderson.
Down goes Anderson.
Yeah.
Down goes Anderson. Just... and Terry Francona, the manager, explained he's like, it's not funny, but it kind of makes you chuckle a little bit. I guess it's not great for the sport of baseball, but at the end of the day, I kind of think it's funny, and it makes me want to watch.
It makes me want to watch, and it's great for getting views and getting attention on social medias and marketing just for the sport in general. I mean, that's not what they're trying to push, and that's not the direction, but I think, small things like that throughout the game that keep things interesting, keep things fresh. I like it. And I mean, look at hockey. I think I would make the argument that in a big rivalry game, the possibility of a fight breaking out at any point in a hockey game is just exhilarating.
Yeah, and what do the refs do? They kind of let the game play a little bit.
Just let it happen.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm not saying let's have more fights in baseball, but I do like this emotion in baseball. We talked earlier about Dak and Trayvon Diggs letting that emotion fly. I'm fine with it in competition. Maybe not all of them lead to fights, but push and shove, yell at each other. I like that. That's fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, story number 3 here. Orioles broadcaster Kevin Brown is currently suspended from his job broadcasting the O's for basically spitting straight facts, talking about how the Orioles have been good lately, but against the Rays historically, and over the last couple years, they've been really bad against the Rays, and they suspended him for it. Meanwhile, he was speaking on a graphic that the company decided to show on the screen. The company showed the record, what they are against the Rays and all the stat breakdowns, and he was simply commenting, as you can see here, we don't do well against the Rays or whatever. They've played us really tough.
Which is fair.
They have our number.
Yeah.
They suspended him for it.
Which is ridiculous.
The owner said that it makes him look cheap.
I don't get that.
Baffles me. And here's the thing that kind of pisses me off in a sense. It's they have so much momentum. They're 3 games up in first place of the toughest division in baseball. Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, the Blue Jays. All of them have massive payrolls, and they're 3 games up. They're playing well. They have a young core. They have the number 1 prospect in baseball in Jackson Holliday, who's literally nobody can get him out, and he's 14 years old, he looks like. You have so much promise as a franchise. What the hell are you doing? It's the dumbest thing. You are going to lose fans. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Why would you have so much momentum and then make such a stupid decision just because somebody said, hey, you're not great against the Rays. The proper response would be like, you're damn right we're not, but we're turning that around.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Orioles owners should be ashamed. Sell the franchise. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's just annoying too, and it kind of sucks because, we've dabbled in this business now for a while, and if you can't say the truth, like, I don't care who it's on. I don't care. Like, we're Steelers. Well, not a show, but we're from Pittsburgh. We're Steelers fans.
We're rooting for the Steelers.
And we're Pittsburgh fans. We're rooting for the Penguins. We're rooting for the Pirates. We're rooting for the Steelers. But when it comes to being honest and, like, actually reflecting on things, we're not going to sit here and just be like, oh, no, we're just not going to talk bad about the Steelers. Even if the Steelers were employing us and they make a stupid decision on a Sunday and we come on and say it on Monday, you shouldn't get fired for that or suspended for that. That just makes no sense.
And it's not even like he was saying we suck or... we don't belong in a class with them.
You're not devaluing the name of your brand.
He just quite literally was like, this is the historical result of the last however many couple of years, year or two or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, this is the reality of the situation over the last 3 years.
It's annoying.
If the owner doesn't like it, then why don't you change it? Why don't you do something to change it?
Yeah.
And you have been. So why are you messing it up? It doesn't make any sense to me. That's kind of all we have for the news, but I guess we're going to talk a little bit about college football, and so I guess I'll kind of preface what I have to say by... the news of college football, which is the Pac-12 is kind of basically being dismantled, right? So you're going to have USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. That was decided already. They'll go 2024. Joining them now, as of 2 weeks ago, will be Oregon and Washington. They'll also join for next football season, which leaves only Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State in the Pac-12 as of right now for 2024. It's not a great spot to be in if you're the Pac-12, but that's the news nonetheless. It's an interesting spot for college football.
Yeah, it's really going to... I think it'll end up shaking things up, too.
Right, so there's two ways to look at this. One, the Big Ten gets stronger. It was already a very strong conference, probably second to the SEC. But also, two, yes, the Pac-12 gets weaker and down to the point where we're not even sure if there's going to be a Pac-12 conference anymore. But... I do want to start by saying, I think overall for the sport of college football, I think it is very good for the entire sport of college football. Is there an argument to be made that for the other programs in those athletic departments that now have to find somewhere to play, there's an argument that holistically, maybe it's not the best, but at the end of the day, out of 32 programs at a major Division I school like a USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, right? Out of the 32, athletic programs that they have, 3 of them will turn a profit. Like basketball usually, football, baseball, occasionally a softball or a soccer, but that's it. And sometimes baseball, sometimes those don't even turn a profit. The football team, that revenue is paying for every other program in the school. So at the end of the day, if you need to move to the Big Ten to make your football program more profitable, you have to do so because it's going to make your athletic department and every other program that you have also more successful and have the chance to profit more. So it's not just, is the football team this, or is it just the other programs here? It's it could have a huge impact on the rest of the programs, good, bad, indifferent, whatever the case may be. But I think from a revenue standpoint, it makes a ton of sense. And to be fair, the Pac-12 have been dragging their feet for years on this. 5 years ago, you see this conference dying, right? They couldn't lock down a TV deal. Sponsors were hit and miss. The marketing for the Pac-12 it just hasn't been very good. Nobody's let me sit down and watch a good Pac-12 football game. No, but I'll watch Wisconsin, Northwestern, even though Northwestern sucks, right? The Big Ten has that draw. And I will say, in terms of college football, they on a weekendly basis, how many teams are there in college football? 130.
That's so many
in major Division I college football. How many games do I have to run to the TV to watch? 4 a weekend, maybe.
I was gonna say 3 to 4.
And that's on good weekends. There's maybe 5 games where I'm wow, I would watch that game. Right now, you could have 5 on the same day in the Big Ten alone, and you could have them all in different time zones. You could have Penn State and Michigan at noon. And then at 2:15, 3 o'clock, you could have someone in Wisconsin, because that's now an hour behind. You could have somebody play there. You could now have somebody play...
Ohio State primetime.
Well, you could have Iowa or something play as well. And then you could finish off. You could have football from noon until 2 a.m. because you could have Oregon, Washington on the West Coast. And so that game doesn't start till 8 o'clock out there, 11 o'clock on the East Coast. So you have airtime from noon until 2 in the morning. Like, it makes a ton of sense for the Big Ten, and I get to watch good football games consistently now.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. You started mentioning, the profitability of different college athletic programs, and to look at the difference between sports. Yes, of course, you have to favor football because that brings in all of your revenue. Just for numbers purposes, less than 3% of college baseball programs nationally turn a profit. There were only 4 to do it last year.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
LSU.
Yes.
Ole Miss.
No.
Vanderbilt.
Yep.
Hold up. Florida.
Yep. One more.
Is it SEC?
Yes.
Arkansas.
Mississippi State.
Those
are the only 4 college baseball programs that actually made money. So when you look around at the different sports, and people always make the argument that it is unfair for other sports to have to kind of do what football does, but they're the ones that pay for you to even exist at that college.
I could not agree. It was like, you can dislike it, but it's like that they're keeping your program
it's football,
afloat.
It's football and basketball.
This is the whole, like, the whole WNBA NBA thing. It's like, no. Like, we can rip on the NBA contracts. You are a subsidized NBA league. Like,
yeah.
The NBA is giving you spare money to keep you afloat.
Right.
So, like, we can complain, yes, we can have discussions, but at the end of the day, like, you have to realize you're not here without the good grace of somebody else in terms, like, another program, whether that's the NBA to the WNBA, whether that's football to men's soccer, women's lacrosse, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. It's just, you need to be able to realize how important football is to your program, to your university, and be okay with decisions being made based off of that. Right?
I couldn't agree more. Life's not fair. Deal with it.
It isn't. And I think overall, this is going to create a fantastic just product for college football.
I think for the sport, it's good.
Yes. And I think the different things that they've been doing, the steps that they've been taking, right? The playoff is expanding coming up, which I think is perfect. You involve more fan bases. Get more people interested in watching college football because it actually comes down to not just the top 4 teams.
And I don't think it's the end of the world. You could do a West Coast conference with Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford, Cal, throw Boise State, San Diego State in there. Maybe you can get like a Wyoming in there.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
There are ways to preserve the Pac-12.
For basketball, you get Gonzaga in that. That's a great get.
Exactly.
Gonzaga's playing bigger games.
There's a lot of different things that you can do. It doesn't mean the Pac-12 is dead. It just means it's becoming less relevant
It's a little bit
than
different.
the Big Ten.
Yeah, and also, to be fair, like, Washington State's not winning a conference as it stands right now.
No.
If you make a West Coast conference, they have a chance. Same with Oregon State. Oregon State's not going to beat out USC, UCLA, Oregon. That's just not. That's never going to happen.
No.
But if they leave the conference and you get a couple extra teams, now you're the top dog. And I'm not saying it's going to be a major conference, but it'd be one of the stronger non-Power 5 conferences if you would consider it outside of the main couple, like the Big 12, ACC, Big 10, and SEC, obviously. So if that's, like, I guess, the 5th and the least of a Power 5, there's an argument to be made that, like, in a 12-team, 16-team playoff, that the winner would get an automatic bid. And so now there's actually more of a path for an Oregon State, a Stanford, or whoever to get in as long as they win that conference. And I think it's logical that they could do so.
Right, and I think it would improve the quality of play of those teams too that haven't been the greatest, right? Like, it's going to bring up teams that haven't been able to compete with those top dogs, because then if you can win your conference and you get a bid to go, then look, I don't care what conference I have to play in. If I get a chance to go to the college football playoffs and I can do it through a little bit easier of a route, and that's going to bring more talent to those schools that haven't had it in so long.
Right, I agree.
But that's pretty much all we have for today.
Mike's being upset at me right now.
We'll finish it off like this.
Done.
The mic quit.
Clocking out. Clocking out.
Tim's done for the day. Guys, make sure you go to theissuesports.com. We have a bunch of stuff going on over there. You can catch up with everything on social media, so make sure you find all of the links there on the website. Follow the newsletter, everything. You can find it there, theissuesports.com. Guys, we appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, guys.
That was The Issue.